Hi everyone, welcome to another time-lapse sketching tutorial. If you want to follow along, you can download the reference photo from the video description below. And this time-lapse video is actually the condensed version of the full-length 40-minute video that I have made for my patrons. So if you want to check out the full video, consider supporting me on Patreon. Alright, the link is in the video description below. So I wanted to draw this scene because there is this shadow shape which looks really nice. You can see the cast shadow cast by the wall on the left, onto the side wall, and also onto the streets. And this big shadow shape is just this continuous shape that you can paint with a single watercolor wash. So this is what attracted me to this particular scene, and of course there is good contrast between light and shadow. So for this particular sketch, I started from the top to the bottom. I've already visualized how much space the different parts of the building are going to take up on the page. So I was able to draw those parts first. Basically, the roof on the left side will take up about 1/3 of the page. The second roof, which is lower, is going to take up another 1/3 of the page, and the right side of the page is taken up by the sunlit wall. So when it comes to sketching something like this, observation skills is very important. When it comes to sketching from observation, obviously observation skills is very important. The pen that I'm using is the Sailor fountain pen with a zoom nib. So here I'm trying to measure the angles. I actually got the proportion off here. You can see the window that I just drew. There is actually more wall on the left side of that window, but I actually got the proportion wrong. So yeah, so even for me when sketching for so many years, sometimes I still make mistakes. The vanishing point for this particular scene is actually somewhere on the right side. So when it comes to drawing the diagonal lines for the window blinds that you saw earlier, and also the diagonal lines for the bricks on the wall, those diagonal lines should go to the vanishing point. And also you can see some of the diagonal lines on the cobblestones or the rocks on the ground. Those diagonal lines will actually go to the vanishing point of the street, which is different from the vanishing point of the building. So you need to make sure that the vanishing points are going in the correct direction to create a sketch that looks convincing, that looks believable. Now for these little details in the background, I'm just trying to draw them with thin lines by trying to hold a fountain pen vertically, or just drawing them with very light pressure so that I can get the thin lines. For the brick pattern that's on the wall, those brick patterns, they don't contribute to the form of the wall. It's the edge of the wall that contributes to the form of the wall. So for any elements that do not contribute to the form of the subject, to the physical form of the subject, I would usually draw them with thinner lines. So for boundary lines, I usually have those lines much thicker. Okay, so this sketch, as you can see, is almost complete. It's not a very difficult sketch to draw. I guess mostly because when working with a photo like this, the composition has already been chosen for you. If you're drawing this on location, it would be more fun because you get to choose your own composition, and also the light and shadow will change while you are sketching. So when you're painting the shadows, you have to work faster because the shadows will move. Okay, so here I'm just adding some finishing touches, adding some more details like the bricks. For elements that are in the foreground, I tend to add more details. So you can see some of the cobblestones in the background. I just represent those stones in the background with dots or with very short horizontal lines. The colors that are used for this sketch are lemon yellow. I'm not sure what warm red that is. Raw sienna or yellow ochre, cerulean blue, French ultramarine, and burnt sienna. For the shadow, I'll be mixing the shadows with French ultramarine, cerulean blue, and burnt sienna. The darker areas will be mixed with French ultramarine because ultramarine can give you a darker wash, whereas with cerulean blue, it's a paint that has low tinting strength, so no matter how much paint you add to burnt sienna, you will not get a very dark color, which is why I needed to have ultramarine as well. So for this shadow shape, I'm going to paint this as a single continuous shape. I have to use a lot of water so that the wash is not dry, so that the wash can be wet while I paint this continuously. If halfway while you're painting and the wash dries, subsequent layers that you add later on will create this hard edge and it's not going to look nice. So when it comes to painting large shadow shapes like this, try to work quickly. Try to paint this as a single wash. Now on the right side here, I actually made a mistake. The cutout that you see, the negative shape that you see actually should be higher and towards the left side. And because of my little mistake there, I wasn't able to paint the shadow on the right side, the vertical shadow on the right side. So now it looks as if the plants they are hanging by the side of the wall, they are actually floating in space. Here I'm trying to make some of the shadows darker I'm going to make some of the shadows darker by applying a second wash. And for the areas that are going to blend into the first wash, I'm just going to wash my brush really quickly so that I can blend the darker shadows into the initial wash. You will see all that later on. So currently I'm using the brush. This is a silver black velvet with a sharp point to draw the lines between the stones. Earlier on, I could have chosen not to draw those stones with ink. Instead, I'll choose to draw it with the brush. So I'm just adding some splatter marks onto the wall on the side to create some texture. Otherwise, the white wall looks kind of empty. I just wanted some texture to create more life, to make this sketch look more lively. So now I'm painting the darker areas by going over the initial wash. The darker shade was mixed with ultramarine and burnt sienna. So this part of the wall is supposed to be darker. By darker, I mean darker, relatively speaking, compared to the shadow color which is beside. So when you're painting shadows, always be comparing, like is this shade darker compared to the next shade which is beside. If it is, then you can go in with a second layer. So I've just painted the sky as well with a very light wash of cerulean blue, just to create that extra contrast between the sky and the white wall of the building. If you notice in the reference photo, the gray is actually more gray than blue. it's kind of like a warm gray, but for my gray, because it's mixed with ultramarine and burnt sienna, you get to see either blue or you get to see burnt sienna. If you want a more neutral looking gray, you can mix your own gray using 3 primary colors. This is a very fun sketch. I highly recommend you download the photo and practice on your own, because this is not a very difficult sketch to draw and to paint. So I'm sure you will have a lot of fun learning while you are practicing. So this is a close-up of the sketch. If you guys want to learn more about pen, ink, and watercolor sketching, do check out the many free tutorials I have on my YouTube playlist, or you can consider supporting me on Patreon as well. The links are all in the video description below. Thanks for watching. See you guys again. Bye.